testifying behind closed doors today, resigned, remember, just a few days ago. Remind, first of all, our viewers why he's a significant figure, and number two, I understand you have some reporting on what he might tell Congress today.
Yeah, I mean, Willie, so first of all, I've known Kurt for many years. He's a very well-respected diplomat in Washington, D.C. He started as a career diplomat. He heads the McCain Institute here in Washington, affiliated with Arizona State University. He's important because he took a job, kind of a part-time job, working for the Trump administration as the president's envoy to Ukraine. Mostly what that job meant was that he was responsible for working with the Russians and with the Ukrainians to try to tamp down the very hot war in eastern Ukraine, in the Donbas region. And that's separate from Crimea, which is, as we know, under Russian occupation. So Kurt has been all along trying to just, again, keep things on an even keel, maybe see if he can help bring the Russians and the Ukrainians closer to some kind of political agreement. And that's been his role. And somewhere along the line, as we know from the transcript of the phone call, the president wanted Rudy Giuliani to be put in touch with Ukrainian officials in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, and Kurt got involved. He got involved, as we know from Rudy Giuliani's text messages. He essentially put Rudy Giuliani in touch with some Ukrainians. Beyond that, we don't really know. That's the story, probably. You know, those are the facts that Kurt has to lay out today when he goes to give a deposition to the House Intelligence Committee, and I guess it's a joint investigation. So what I expect, knowing the man, is that he will cooperate completely, and, you know, he resigned from that position, which was the first indication that he probably would cooperate. The White House can no longer put any pressure on him, nor can the State Department. And so he's going to come and he's going to tell his account of what happened. My guess is that he was, if to the extent that he understood that there was something nefarious that Rudy Giuliani may have been planning here with the president, he would have been trying to curtail the damage to the relationship, right? The man, Kurt, cares about democracy in America and in Ukraine.
So to remind people, Kurt Volker is the one who Rudy Giuliani posted the text and made those public. Rudy Giuliani said Volker is the one who connected him to Ukrainian officials in the government. Karine?
Yes, Director, I wanted to ask you, do you think that we will ever get the full transcript of the Ukraine call that the president had with the president of Ukraine?
Well, there is no recording, as far as I know, unless the policy in the White House has changed. But there are individuals who simultaneously transcribe the words. And looking at what was released by the White House, that looks like it was something other than what was contemporaneously transcribed at that time. So I don't know whether or not we're going to be able to get that, but there is more that at least at one point was there.
Claire McCaskill has a question for you. Claire?
John, let's back up here and look what's going on to the intelligence community in America. Let me start by saying everyone needs to realize the majority of people who work in the intelligence community are either veterans or even a lot of active military. And obviously, when you have Paul Manafort and Carter Page playing footsie with Russia and then becoming key in the Trump campaign, we would expect any intelligence community to take notice. What's going on now is really interesting. You have Lindsey Graham and the Attorney General of the United States basically asking our allies to investigate our intelligence community. That's a startling development. Isolated, it would be shocking. In this mess, it's not as shocking because people are not paying close attention to it. Talk about the impact this is going to have on our intelligence community long term and what they're feeling within the community right now as the president and important people in this country have turned the light and tried to say somehow they're the bad guys.
Yeah, Clara, I think you're absolutely right. I believe that this has hurt the morale within the intelligence community. These are women and men who sacrifice a great deal, and their families as well. And if they see that Mr. Trump is continuing to denigrate and disparage their work, and then go overseas and look for dirt on the intelligence community, or try to undermine what was the intelligence community's assessment that the Russians interfered in the election, I think that does send a very chilling signal and a very disparaging signal to the intelligence community. But I also am concerned is what do the foreign intelligence services as well as governments take away from this? That the U.S. intelligence community cannot be trusted? Are they now going to stop the cooperation with the intelligence community because of what Mr. Trump is doing? The U.S. intelligence community relies heavily on the cooperation of intelligence security services around the globe. And if it looks as though the intelligence community is not being trusted by the administration, how does that then affect our work and the word of the intelligence community? When U.S. policymakers want to take some type of action overseas and they point to U.S. intelligence, if that U.S. intelligence is being undermined by the words of Mr. Trump, how then can the international community put stock in that? It has, I think, long-term damaging effects.
Evelyn, it's Jonathan Lemire, piggybacking on the director's point there. You're the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for including Russia. Yesterday, we heard Vladimir Putin jokingly talk about interfering with the election again in 2020. We've heard the president joke to Vladimir Putin during the sidelines of a summit in Japan this past summer, sort of sarcastically telling him not to do it, with no teeth behind it. As we're talking here about the president using his powers to dig up electoral dirt on Joe Biden, also, how concerned should Americans be that very little has been done to safeguard the next elections for an outside power, whether in coordination with the president or not, to try to meddle yet again?
Yeah, Jonathan, we should be very concerned. I mean, that's the bigger picture here. The Russian government is still trying to weaken our democracy. They are loving this. They are benefiting, first and foremost, from everything, all of this, from the smear on Ukraine, which in part probably came from them. I mean, someone's feeding Rudy Giuliani a lot of this garbage information, and I believe those people are close to the Kremlin, even if they're Ukrainian. So the Kremlin is benefiting from that. And then, of course, they're also benefiting even from this impeachment because it's creating a mess in our democracy. So, yes, we can expect them to continue to use whatever disinformation to try to spy on us and take the information out of campaigns and put it out in the public. All the dirty tricks, you know, they haven't stopped.
Putin literally was laughing about it yesterday in Russia in an interview with our Keir Simmons. Evelyn Farkas, thank you. Director Brennan, thank you as well. Appreciate you being here.